depths of Black Hollow Forest. They said the forest was cursed, a place where no sound echoed and no light lingered for long. Black Hollow Forest stood at the edge of the old mining town of Crawley, a decaying relic of a once bustling community. Over the years, stories of missing children, strange sightings, and ghostly whispers had turned the forest into a forbidden zone. Even the bravest hunters avoided its gnarled paths, claiming that the woods had eyes, that it breathed, that it wanted you inside. For decades, no one dared challenge the tales until four desperate friends, Sam, Mia, Ethan, and Clara, found themselves drawn to it, not out of curiosity, but necessity. The truth was simple. They had nowhere else to go. "We'll cut through," Sam said, holding up a flimsy flashlight as they stood at the edge of the forest. His voice was confident, though the tremor in his hand betrayed him. "It's just trees. Superstitions don't kill people." "But people vanish," Clara whispered, clutching Mia's arm. She was the smallest of the group, her wide eyes scanning the dark expanse of Black Hollow like it would swallow them whole. "Sam, this is stupid." "And staying in Crawley isn't?" Ethan snapped, his voice low and sharp. "We have no money, no place to sleep, and those guys are still looking for us. Unless you want to end up in a ditch, this is the way." The group had made enemies, serious ones, in their attempt to escape their small-town lives. Crawley's underbelly was a web of dealers, thieves, and worse, and the four friends had unwittingly tangled themselves in it. Running through Black Hollow seemed their only shot at freedom. The air was heavy as they stepped beneath the canopy. The deeper they ventured, the darker it became, as if the forest devoured the light. Mia kept glancing over her shoulder, her auburn hair sticking to her damp forehead. "Did anyone hear that?" she whispered. "It's just your imagination," Ethan replied, but even he seemed on edge. The forest was alive, but not with the rustling of leaves or the chirping of crickets. Instead, there was an unnatural stillness, broken only by the occasional creak, as if the trees themselves were shifting. Sam led the way, the flashlight beam cutting a narrow path through the oppressive darkness. Clara stayed close to Mia, her grip tightening every time the wind teased their ears with faint whispers that no one could quite understand. By the time they reached the first clearing, the group was silent. The only sound was their labored breathing, echoing louder than it should. A gnarled oak tree stood at the center, its twisted branches resembling clawed hands reaching for the sky. A rusted chain swing hung from one of its branches, swaying slightly though there was no breeze. "Why, is there a swing out here?" Clara's voice cracked. She glanced at Ethan, who avoided her gaze. "Doesn't matter, keep moving," Sam ordered, but his voice had lost its edge. An hour passed, though it felt like days. The flashlight began to dim, flickering weakly against the suffocating black. The path twisted and turned, each step feeling like a descent into something deeper, darker. Then they heard it, a soft giggle. Mia froze, her hand shooting out to grab Sam's jacket. "Did you hear that?" she hissed, her voice barely a breath. "It's the wind," Ethan said, though his eyes darted around nervously. "That's not the wind," Clara whimpered. "It sounded like a child." "We're not stopping," Sam said firmly. He took a step forward, but the giggle came again, louder this time. It echoed through the trees, bouncing off unseen walls until it surrounded them. Then, from the darkness ahead, a ball rolled onto the path. It was small and red, its surface scuffed and muddy. It came to a stop at Sam's feet, and for a moment, no one moved. The air grew colder, sharp enough to sting their lungs. "Who's there?" Sam shouted, his voice cracking. No answer, just the ball and the silence. Ethan picked up a stick, gripping it like a weapon. "Let's keep moving, now!" As they pressed on, the forest seemed to close in around them. The trees grew denser, their twisted roots clawing at the earth. The giggles turned into whispers, unintelligible but relentless, like the forest itself was speaking. "Mia!" a voice hissed. She spun around, her eyes wide. "Who said that?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The others stared at her, confused. "No one said anything," Ethan replied. "I heard it. It said my name," Mia insisted, her breathing quickening. "It came from right behind me." Sam grabbed her arm. "Don't lose it. That's what it wants. Just keep walking." What wants?" Clara asked, her voice shaking. She looked up, her gaze darting between the treetops. "This place isn't right. We shouldn't be here." "We don't have a choice," Sam snapped, but even he seemed less sure with every step. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. Words formed, though they were in a language none of them understood. Strange markings began to appear on the trees, symbols carved deep into the bark, glowing faintly in the dim light. Then they reached the cabin. It appeared without warning, its jagged silhouette cutting through the darkness. The structure leaned precariously, its wood blackened with age. A single window stared out like an unblinking eye, and the door hung slightly ajar, creaking faintly as it swayed. "No," Clara said immediately, stepping back. "No way, we're not going in there." "We don't have a choice," Ethan said. "We always have a choice," Clara shot back, tears streaming down her face. "And I choose not to die in some cursed forest." "Stop it!" Sam barked. "We need to rest, regroup. It's just a building." But as he stepped closer, even he hesitated. There was something wrong with the cabin. Its very presence felt unnatural, like it had grown out of the earth rather than being built. Inside, the air was thick with decay. The walls were covered in scratches, long gouges that trailed from floor to ceiling. A table sat in the center, its surface stained with something dark and crusted. Mia's eyes fell on a small, framed photograph sitting on the mantel. It was a picture of 4 children, their faces blurred as though the image had been intentionally smudged. She picked it up, her hands trembling. "We need to leave," she whispered, placing the photo back. "Now." But the door slammed shut before anyone could move. The whispers outside turned into screams. They surrounded the cabin, shrill and animalistic, growing louder with each passing second. The friends backed into a corner, their eyes darting to every shadow that flickered across the walls. "What's happening?" Clara cried, clutching Ethan's arm. "I don't know," he shouted back, raising his stick defensively. The window shattered, shards of glass raining down as a dark figure darted past. It moved too quickly to make out, its form a blur of black and gray. "Stay together," Sam ordered, though his voice was shaking. But the forest had other plans. The cabin's walls began to groan, the wood splintering as unseen forces clawed at it. The door burst open, and the friends bolted, running blindly into the night. The forest seemed alive now, its branches reaching for them like hands, its roots tripping their steps. Clara screamed as something cold and sharp grazed her arm. She stumbled, falling hard onto the ground. Ethan stopped, pulling her up just as a shadow loomed behind them. It let out an inhuman screech, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Run!" Ethan yelled, shoving Clara ahead of him. They didn't stop until they reached another clearing, their lungs burning and their legs threatening to give out. Sam collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest. Mia looked around, tears streaming down her face. "Where's Ethan?" They searched for him, calling his name until their voices were hoarse, but the forest only answered with silence. The giggles returned louder now, mocking them. Shadows flitted between the trees, their movements jerky and unnatural. "We need to keep moving," Sam said finally, his voice hollow. He's gone." Clara refused to leave, screaming his name into the void until Mia dragged her away. As they stumbled through the forest, they began to notice the changes. The trees bore faces now, their bark twisted into grotesque visages. The whispers grew clearer, forming words in a language that clawed at their minds. And then they saw it. A massive oak tree stood in their path, its trunk split open to reveal a dark hollow. Inside, something moved. It was Ethan, his body contorted, his face frozen in a scream. Branches coiled around him like serpents, pulling him deeper into the tree's maw. "Ethan!" Clara screamed, running forward, but Sam held her back. "He's gone," Sam said, his voice breaking. "We can't help him." By dawn, only Mia and Sam remained. Clara had vanished in the night, her screams echoing long after she was dragged into the shadows. The two survivors stumbled out of the forest, their clothes torn, their bodies battered, but Black Hollow had marked them. Sam's reflection no longer matched his movements, his eyes staring back with a malice that wasn't his own. Mia heard voices wherever she went, whispering secrets she could never repeat. The forest had taken pieces of them, leaving behind only fragments. They never spoke of what happened. Crawley's people would have dismissed them as lunatics anyway. But every now and then, a new story would surface, of strange lights in the woods, of whispers that called your name. And the forest remained, waiting, breathing, alive. Join the conversation. Your support drives us. We hope you enjoyed this video. But here's a question. Why haven't you subscribed to our channel yet? Your one like and subscribe give us the motivation to create even more engaging videos. And don't forget to share your thoughts. Head to the comments section below and tell us, which part of the story gave you chills or made your heart race the most? Your feedback means the world to us. Thank you for your incredible support.